Welcome to the Inventables live event. Today, we're going to launch 3D and Easel Pro. I'm Zach Kaplan, the founder and CEO of Inventables. Our vision at Inventables is to bring manufacturing technology into the hands of millions of people. And our mission is to help all makers generate income from your work. We aspire to help all of you start and grow your businesses. Now, at Inventables, we love our customers and we listen to you. We prioritize and shape how we build new features in Easel from your feedback. Lots of our customers, lots of the people listening today, make and sell products like signs and flags. And today, we're announcing some exciting new features in Easel Pro to help you make more money by making it effortless to carve in 3D. Over the last year, we've been working hard on 3D, and we've dramatically simplified the workflow for 3D. You can now carve in seconds. Today, we're introducing real-time carving estimation for 3D to give you instant feedback to adjust your settings and see how they will impact your carve time. And best of all, this is all included in Easel Pro at the same price. But that's not all. There's also 6 new features we're launching today, including being able to carve from the center of the material and group and ungroup elements. At the end of this live event, we're going to have a giveaway with a number of prizes. So let's take a deeper look at 3D in Easel Pro.
I'm not really good with computers.
I'm not a coder or anything like that.
It looks like the same old easel. It just has one more capability that is no little thing.
I think 3D is where we get into the expensive gifts. Some of these 3D carvings we could do out of a really nice piece of cherry or maple can sell for 3-4 times what we sell at just a casual decor sign for.
It's fulfilling for me. Yes, the money's nice, but to hand that product over to that individual and to see the smile, in some cases tears, the emotions, that to me is probably the most fulfilling.
Now that is exciting. Join me to give a warm welcome to Ben Sachs, our Director of Software Product, Brian Adle, our Senior Software Engineer and Easel Team Lead, and Brandon Cullum, our Training Manager. This team is going to help walk through more details on 3D in Easel Pro.
Hey, what is up, guys? We are excited to be hanging out with you and doing lots of cool stuff in 3D that hopefully a lot of you are really excited about doing. We are going to be doing a giveaway as well. So this is going to be for one winner. You're going to get a year of Easel Pro, a 3D carving bit kit, and you may be wondering what that is. We'll get into a lot more details about how to actually 3D carve later, as well as a $100 Etsy gift card. And this is if you're looking for models to download. This is a really great place to pick those up. But there is one way to enter, and that is by leaving a comment. And you can leave a comment first and foremost by asking your questions. At the very end, we're going to do a Q&A. And so we'll be able to pull up your questions and go through them. So make sure and drop in a question from there as well. But one thing I thought we would throw over to everybody that is here with us, our group, is a lot of people have been commenting that they are, or where they're from. So we'd love to know your location. I've seen everywhere from South Africa to Iceland. And we've got Zach up in Chicago. We've got Ben over in Pittsburgh. This is the Brady Bunch. It's hard this way, guys. And then we've got Brian down the road from me in Atlanta, and I'm about an hour south of that. But Ben, we are excited because you guys have been working a ton on this, and you actually put this out as a private beta, and we started to see some example carves. And so there are a few that we wanted to go through and kind of wanted to hear what you thought about them. But this was a slide of a flag, which is, I would say, probably the most popular things that we see people sell.
Yeah. So we've been testing 3D for the past few months. We've been working on it for quite a while. And the goal was to improve the functionality. We made it a lot faster and easier to use over that time. And while we did that, we got a lot of great carvings from the community. So yeah, the wavy flag has been a staple. A lot of people are carving them. It's a great example of how you can combine 3D carving with existing sign making techniques like aura mask, paint masking. So this is a painted and then carved flag. Yeah.
That's cool. And because Halloween is coming up, we had to have a Halloween inspired one of the skull with this crazy snake on top.
Right. Yeah. So this is a great example of how you can use 3D and Easel Pro to make the design literally pop out of the wood. So that's a true 3D carving coming right out of that piece of mahogany.
And this one actually is out of a piece of wood. Like you could still tell like the bark and everything. But this was Jesus, a really cool carving that we saw.
Yeah, so Ben Gayton down in Texas at 303 Creations has been really active in testing with the early program. And this is a great example of how you can take a piece of live edge wood. This is a figured mesquite slab, and he's engraved that image into it with a relief, with a rectangle around it. So it's almost like the image is coming out of the grain of the wood.
That's a cool one. So topographic maps, real popular. I did the USA carving that you guys saw in that video, and it was a blast to do. These terrain ones are pretty wild.
Yeah, really easy to find STL files or generate STL files from the elevation data. And the cool thing about the topography is you can accentuate the terrain, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the demo. But you can also create GIFs that are local to your customers. So you can create topographic maps of states or cities or areas that are local to your own customers.
Yeah, that's cool. And then this is from Luke, our very own Luke, who's on our team, who does a lot of the development on Xcarve. But he had made this cabinet with like a lion inside of it. It's really cool.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite projects that we saw coming through with the early testing of 3D. So this is a great example of how you can take a 3D carving and combine it with other things to make use in furniture or cabinetry or other products. So you're not just limited to making, essentially a sign. You can take the 3D carving and combine it with other things to add to create really truly valuable products.
Yeah, and I've already seen some comments of people talking about like truly 3D, so actually having a carving on both sides. And so this was a cool example of how you can do this from David Litz.
Yeah, so David took these chess pieces and it looks like flip milling, but actually it's just two pieces carved and then glued together. So you can take the model and flip it and then carve a second one and glue them together. This is a great idea of how you can take 3D and Easel Pro and make just true 3D objects out of it.
That's cool. So, like I said, you guys have been working on this a really long time with the team, and there's some pretty good why reasons behind it. We just didn't want to make it because we thought it was cool. We absolutely do think it's cool, but was some of the reasoning that you guys put behind the development work on the Easel side?
Yeah, so our mission at Inventables is to help makers generate income from their work, and 3D supports this mission, but it has to be easy enough for all makers to use. So the two driving factors that we used when making 3D were to help makers make more money from their work and to make it easy to use. And so in order to do that, we interviewed so many people. We also knew that 3D was the most requested feature. And when we did those interviews, we heard that it was really hard to learn and have success with the existing tools. So we needed to make 3D carving in Easel as easy as V carving was, so that new carvers, even people who are new to CNC carving in general, would have early success. And to do that, we focused on making the workflow as simple as possible. That's import, set, and carve.
That's cool. Yeah, and we actually interviewed these folks on camera, and we have some kind of quotes for you guys. So you aren't just taking our word for it, but you kind of see what you guys are talking about as well.
The one thing I love about Easel is it's super easy. The designing is easy. The placing is easy. I love the Easel interface. I love how simple it is.
And as far as the workflow goes, I the roughing passes and the finishing passes, all that's familiar already. So it's not like you're really learning anything new. There's a couple more bells and whistles, but it shouldn't be that insurmountable for somebody to kind of pick it up quick.
The software is easy to use, very user-friendly. You're limited to what your imagination is, really. And then when I saw the 3D come out, and I'll be honest, before you had to take an STL file and find another program or software that could manipulate the code or generate the code. It was just a mess. But with this new software, I just can't express how easy.
Entry level for someone who doesn't have the time to learn Fusion and all the little intricacies. I think you could get up and running a lot quicker. It allows you to have that level of customization and finishing that you would not be able to get, in another machine that doesn't do the 3D carving.
It looks like the same old easel. It just has one more capability that is no little thing.
So the ease of use was kind of one of the key factors, but you also mentioned the business case. And we had some of these examples that we were talking about earlier, but we thought we'd kind of go through them a little bit slower of these 2Ds and 3D carves.
Yeah, so we took samples. These are product listings on Etsy. So this is just a sign for with V engraving and some paint fill. And this sign was sold for about $60. And so a 2D version, and the 3D version of a similar kind of sign was basically twice as much, $121 on Etsy. So yeah, you can add a lot of value to simple signs just with doing some 3D carving.
That's cool. Yeah, and this is real popular, or types of these. So emblems or symbols of different organizations. We see a ton of these.
Definitely, yeah. The plaques are a big seller. So this was a listing for a $90 listing with again a 2D version, and the similar type of plaque in 3D at $150. I'd imagine that there's a lot of headroom in a plaque like this, and not to mention when you get something that looks like that instantly becomes an heirloom in your family.
Yeah, and they're really easy to customize. So even if people are already carving these, you can do something local to where you're at that a lot of people, I'm sure, aren't doing. And these are fun, and we see a ton of these are the actual state maps, which we've talked about a little bit already.
Yeah, that's right. 2D carved or engraved state map. The price there at $48. I think if you go back and look at the 3D version of that, the price is $600. So you can see that the value add is pretty significant there.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So why is 3D so popular? What have you guys been hearing from people as we've been talking?
Well, I think the demand exists for sign makers and other makers to be able to differentiate their business, and the things that you can do with 3D carving that you can't do with 2.5D, those additional creative things that you can unlock, those just create a ton of interest. And so some of the things that we're seeing on the demand side, when people post or share their 3D projects, they get a lot of attention on social media. And I think that there's just a tremendous amount of demand for something that looks new and unique.
Yeah, and we have a good example. Actually, this is Ben, who we just saw the Jesus sign of him posting on social media. But we're going to turn it over to him so you guys can see.
I've already gotten several inquiries. I did one within the last 24 hours where it was a carving of Christ within a piece of mesquite. And the minute I posted that on my Facebook page, right away, just a number of responses, personal texts, personal messages, a lot of inquiries on that particular product.
And I might have the dates wrong, but I know he has done several more since then, and he's gotten I can't talk, sorry. He's gotten similar traction as a result. So yeah, posting just even local like that is real cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of being able to use 3D to create high value products, and to be able to have that demand exist for it. So
yeah, and we even on kind of the pre-work, we had talked with Ryan Brown, who was just talking about his business in general and how like 90% of his carving and his work is on 3D and how big of a deal that is for him.
Yeah, I mean, we've also found businesses who just started, without doing 3D, and then made a couple 3D signs, and then it quickly becomes a big part of their business. So one thing that's really important too, and we'll talk about this again later, is that when you're doing these 3D carvings, one of the reasons why you're able to sell them for more money is that they take longer to carve. It's just inherent into the process. But we've created something called the Carve Time Estimator in Easel Pro. And that allows you, it's one of the most exciting features for 3D and Easel Pro. And allows you to know how long a carve might take while you're designing and setting up. And that gives you real-time feedback so that you can make those critical decisions much faster.
That's cool. So we've been talking a lot about this, but I'm sure people actually want to see what this looks like. So we're going to do a demo, and this is actually going to be live to Ben's screen. So we're going to throw all this up real quick. And as with all live demos, you guys get to see if everything goes right. So this is fun to see actually live what's going on here.
That's right. So so this is my account here in Easel. You'll notice that there's a little icon here for importing an STL file in the toolbar. So I'll go ahead and click that. In the import modal that comes up, that gives you a little overview, and there's some file specifications. Currently 100 megabyte size limit. If your file is bigger than that, you can click this link here to make your file smaller. So I'll go ahead and choose a file. I think I'm going to do that USA carving. It's going to import. And so here we are in 3D and Easel Pro.
That's cool. So we brought in that USA model, and I actually downloaded that one, and it was pretty good size. But you mentioned there's some ways you can kind of work with the file sizes and have it work kind of better with Easel.
Yeah. So like I said, in the import modal, there's a tool that we link to that you can use to make your file smaller if it's over 100 megabytes. You know, generally speaking, the file size, the smaller the file size, the faster it's going to load and upload and work. So, but yeah, we have that limit set at 100 megabytes.
That's cool.
So what you're looking at here, you can see it doesn't look like 2.5D Easel. I can actually create a new workpiece just so you can jump back and forth. You see, this is the Easel that everyone has been used to. The 3D version is a single space here. The first thing you'll see is the model in there on the grid. There's a green box. The green box represents your material. So you can see the material up here is 12 by 8 by 1. That green box, the outline of that shows the material. The purple box shows the boundary of the model, and the position of that box is in the lower left corner there. There's also a little orbit tool up here that you can click on to see sort of orthographic views of the model. You can click around in those.
That's cool. Yeah, the one thing that you can see right off the bat that's going to be real helpful, I feel like, for people that we've talked about, I feel like a little bit already, is the carve time estimation right down there at the bottom.
Yeah, that's right. So before you even generate toolpaths, as you're going through and setting up the model, let's say you want this map to be much bigger. And so I've got a 1/4 inch bit for roughing and an 1/8 inch bit for finishing. I can go ahead and change the size of this model. I'm going to lock all of the X, Y, and Z constraint, the dimensions there, so that it changes uniformly. Let's make this much smaller. So you'll see right now it says that it's 1 hour. If I make that much smaller, you'll see that it's going to only take 10 minutes. And if I make this much bigger, you'll see that it's going to go up to 1 to 2 hours for finishing. So it's pretty cool to be able to see that real-time feedback. And if I change my finishing bit, or let's go in here, and if I change my my roughing bit from let's change that one here, and I'll change the finishing bit to 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch. And maybe I'll change my step over down to 5%. You can see all those changes are immediately impacting the estimate of carve time.
Yeah, that's real cool. Yeah, you're not having to go to generate toolpaths, which you'll show in a second, but you're getting that kind of estimate, which is really helpful because I know this is a big deal on the business side of things when people are trying to figure out, like, how long is this going to take versus my profit, and trying to work it into their actual business.
Yeah, so I think that the advantage here, and you can see here, is like my roughing says it's 10 to 12 hours. I think that's likely because my cut setting here is pretty low. I'm going to fix that real quick and get that.
That would be a fun one. That would be a fun one.
Xcarve Pro.
Yeah.
So if I change that back in, but you can see, like, getting that real-time feedback is really important, because you'd say, oh man, that roughing looked wrong. You don't have to generate toolpaths. So when you're trying to understand how much something costs, it's really important to know how long it takes, and being able to get that real-time feedback, see how those changes to the settings increase or decrease the carve time. That's really just money in your pocket. You're going to be able to know how much to charge for something and be able to iterate very quickly without having to generate toolpaths every time.
Yeah, that's neat. you were doing some adjustments and something I did want to mention. So that lock XYZ, it's cool that that's independent because that's how you can like change the height for if you're wanting to like stretch out or shrink your models.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see here the material I have set to 1 inch thick. So if I go ahead and leave the XY locked, I can change the Z value. So I'll change that to 1 inch. You can see the mountains jumped up, and maybe I can get a better view and just kind of zoom in here for a second. Yeah. There's the West Coast with all the mountains. And if I change that back down to, let's say, just 0.1 inches, now that topography is really flat. So if you have if you live in a state kind of like me here in Pennsylvania, we don't have great topography, but if you want to accentuate that, you can just change the Z value, and now in your carving, you'll see all that. If you actually go above the material, it's going to give you a little warning here. So you can see that warning pops up and it says the material Z is less than the model Z. So some of those places, those high peaks won't carve. So I'll keep that about 1 inch.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm from Mississippi, and I think to get any mountain, it would have to be like 8 inches tall or something, which you couldn't even carve. So, but yeah, it's really neat to play around and you kind of adjust the models as need be once you get in there. So,
yeah. So, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So you've got the model in. Like, what's it look like the process to actually cut it out? I know you got some different settings that we've got set up.
Yeah. So once you've got the model, and you can change all your model settings here. You can go and look at the cut style, and we have 3 different cut styles here. This is the first one is the full depth cutout with auto tabs. So I'll go ahead and actually generate the tool paths here for this, but let's give it a second here.
And this cutout, while it's going, this is the same as like the chess piece that we were talking about earlier. If people kind of wanted an example of what that would look like, is that right?
Yeah. Give me 1 second here.
Because with the chess pieces, and he'll show it in a second, you'll see like the tabs. And so you would cut all the way through. And so you'd have those 2 sides of this chess piece. And then you'd be able to cut those tabs out and then glue them back together. So there's going to be some cases where you just want the part itself versus having some other options that he's going to show in a second. And actually with this guy, the USA, I didn't actually carve it all the way out, but you can imagine if you wanted like just the United States as its own piece, kind of like we saw, let me throw it up again, the Montana sign, or actually like this, you would be doing that kind of similar process that Ben's showing right now.
That's right. Yeah. So in this cut style, the full depth, it's going to cut all the way out here. I'll show you the preview of that. So you can see it's going to just cut the model fully out. It's got some tabs there for you, and you can animate the tool paths forward and backwards. This is the roughing pass here. And then if you want to take a look at the finishing pass, here's the finishing pass. So we can jump in here and take a look at all of those tool paths.
Love it. And that's where you can definitely see those raster settings, right? So you can kind of adjust what direction you want, I guess, depending on the material that you're using. It might have a different setup or better use of rasters.
That's right. So if your wood grain is going along the x-axis, you would want to, you can set the finish tool path along the x. You can also change that to 45 degrees or along the y or 135 degrees. Yeah.
That's cool. And that's like the same type of setting you see also just in 2.5D as well.
That's right.
That stuff before.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's right. The other 2 cut style options are relief options. So I've got another work piece open here. I can change this to a rectangle relief. And when you do that, you notice that there's a gray plane that comes in. This is your cut depth plane. So you can see that if it's set to 0.4 here, what's above it will be cutting and will generate tool paths for, but what's below will not. So if I click generate tool paths for that really quick, you'll see it's only going to generate the tool paths what's above that cut plane. This is helpful. So let's say you want to move that down to like 0.9. You can actually cut out part of the model, but leave material around it. And then the orange box is the extent of what that rectangle relief will be. So it's going to cut out between the model and that orange box.
That's cool. And that is, to show kind of an example of what that would look like, we talked about the skull earlier. And so you can see, like what Ben was talking about, how you've got that relief going around it. And so like if you were to adjust that depth, I guess you would like get less and less of the snake or the skull as you're going up higher on the model.
That's right. Yeah, you can see if I move that from 0.9 to like 0.8, it goes up and then and continues to move around. So you can adjust how deep you want that cut depth to be.
That's cool.
Yeah. So once you're done with the model setup and cut style options that you want, you can go in and add, select your bits and your cut settings. And we did a little bit of that before. So the roughing bits are being pulled from the cut settings and bits that are already in your toolbox. So you can see here I've got a lot of them, and we can pick this. This one's a 1/4 inch one is picked here. And then for finishing bits, we're supporting ball nose. You can see I have some custom bits added from my toolbox, some tapered ball nose bits, as well as some stock bits that are added. This eighth inch it should be in everybody's toolbox here, this 1/8 inch carbide 2 flute. You can also add in just a custom bit here really easily by just entering the diameter of the tip. So if you have, let's say, a 1/2 inch bit, you could go ahead and enter that in. And then it shows you that 1/2 inch value up there.
That's cool. And that pulls in from like your standard toolbox. So like you're going to have all the same cut settings and the same bits and stuff between the two. So these aren't like a special section, right?
That's right. This is pulling from everything that already is in your Easel Pro account in your toolbox. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. And then the last for cut settings we talked about, there's automatic settings for bits that bit and material machine combinations that are already in your toolbox for those automatic settings. You can change the settings to manual as well if you'd like to, and adjust those as you go. For roughing, it's pretty much what you're used to. We could also control the spindle speed here if you have a machine that allows for that. And in finishing, you're going to notice that the most important value is step over. And we're going to talk about this in Brandon in your overview video a few times, but this step over is kind of like resolution in 3D printing. The smaller this value, the higher the resolution or the better the surface finish, but the longer the carve time. So you can see here, this says 30 minutes to generate. If I change this step over down to 5%, it goes to over an hour. And if I change it to 1%, it's 4 to 5 hours. So generally speaking, I think the step over value is what you're going to want to play around with the most.
Yeah. And so when you guys are looking at these, when you start seeing like hours in there, know that could be a real situation. So these cards definitely can take a while, especially if it's big and that resolution is changing. But I was actually surprised because I bumped my step over, I think, to 20% when I did the USA. And so you guys just saw the video of it, and you still got really good resolution, but it's going to depend on what you're making. So definitely play around with it to play around with kind of the quality versus the time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of experimentation to figure out. Ultimately, if you're selling a product, you want to understand how long it's going to take to make, and then what you can sell it for. So, you might not want to do that 6 or 7 or 8 hour carve if you can do a 2 or 3 hour carve to sell it for the same price.
That's cool. So, okay, so we got the estimates, and then you can get the actual toolpath just by hitting the generate toolpath, and it's kind of the same process from there, right?
Yeah, I'll just drop this down to 0.9, I think, to see, and let's go ahead and generate those toolpaths. So yeah, it's pretty snappy here. This is a pretty big carve. So this is going to show you the exact time. So this is the roughing toolpath shows 34 minutes, and then if I click over here to show finishing, that's 51 minutes. So traditional, like in Easel, the blue lines are the toolpaths, the red lines are the jog. And you can see it's going to the front corner here. And you can animate these toolpaths by bringing the little slider back and forth so you can see where it's going to go. And then you can, once the toolpaths are generated, you can click show preview, and that's going to show you the preview. So here's that relief option where it's going to give you everything that's cut down through your material, but leave the model around it. So.
Yeah. And this view is really good too if you're trying to like make a product for somebody. You can get to this point and kind of like take a screenshot and send it over to say, hey, this is what it's going to look like. Is this what you're thinking? So this is a really cool feature.
That's right. Yeah, I like looking at the toolpaths in here. I mean, especially some of the detail that you can get, really get in here and see where things are going to be carved, and what to expect when you're looking around. So you can see here how it's going to contour down in and around those Great Lakes.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, this is kind of going through it quick-ish, I guess, but yeah, like Ben said, we've got a full kind of overview video that's going to walk you through this process that is going to be on YouTube soon. But there's also, it should be a link, I think, in the email that you guys are going to get or have already gotten. They'll kind of walk through this step by step as well. But hopefully this makes sense, and the process also makes sense for you, because I know you guys have spent a good amount of time really trying to hammer on the ease of use component of this, because this definitely could get complicated, but we want to keep it easy, but also where you guys can get a really great result.
Yeah, that's right. So, to reiterate here, you can go to project and you import. So the first step is to import your model. Then you want to set everything up, and then you can go ahead and carve it. So import, set, carve.
Cool. Yeah, so yeah, import, set, and carve, those three processes. And like I said, that video you guys can check out. We'll have a lot more details on it. But so this isn't the only thing that has been happening with Easel. So 3D obviously is a big release that's happening right now, but I am going to bring Brian up. And Brian, I'm also going to throw my face on screen as well so you can see it. But so you have been doing a lot of work. You lead the Easel team on the development side. And I know there's been several updates that have been coming that we wanted to show you guys as well.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Before I go through the features, I really would be remiss if I didn't give a huge thank you to the entire Inventables dev team. The amount of work that's happened over, honestly, the last year to get us to this point with 3D, and the last couple of months to get all these features ready for users has been outstanding. And honestly, every single developer has worked on at least one of these major features. And so it's really exciting that this is a whole team effort. So thank you to the team for that. First off, we are launching today a carve from center feature, and this is a highly requested feature. So now you can change your material 0 from the lower left-hand corner to the center of your material. I know that for round pieces and certain other pieces, it's easier to set the center of your location than the lower left point. So this will help users get the design in the right position on their material. Next up, we've got another highly requested feature, and that is group ungroup of features, or of shapes. So what this will do is allow you to group multiple shapes together so that they move, resize, and rotate together. It makes it easier to move portions of your design around and get them located in the right place. Next up is a workflow improvement. This is what we're calling repeat carving. What this will do is it will speed up your workflow when you are doing the same carve over and over again. So you can complete the carve, remove the material, add a new piece of material, and then quickly get into carving. It takes away all of the re-zeroing steps. This feature is currently in beta and will be launching widely in the coming days. Next up is another feature for you to get your designs to your customers earlier for approval. This is our product preview. So this will allow you to export a high quality image as well as hide any waste material from your design for an easier mock-up to send to customers. We're also launching a big improvement to our labels. So Pro Project labels was something that we released a few months ago, and we've heard a lot of feedback from customers. And so we've got a big pass of usability improvements. You will now be able to add labels to a single project or multiple projects at one time right from your project listings. And you can also delete multiple projects at one time if you're anything like me and you've got quite a few untitled projects in there that you'd like to clean up. This makes that project management a lot easier. And then lastly, we're launching new machine jog controls for the first time since I think Easel was launched. We've got an improvement to our jog controls. And these new jog controls are really exciting. The layout has been improved based on some user testing and some usability feedback that we got. It makes homing your machine a lot easier with a homing button, and it also includes a digital readout so that you can locate your spindle relative to your work zero a lot easier. But for users who have been using that Easel jog control for years and you fear change, don't worry. We've made it where that you can keep your old layout as well if that's what you love.
That's cool. You guys have been working hard. I feel like you need to take a nap for like several days and then come back and make some more stuff for everybody. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing all this. And those are all live right now, right? So people can jump in, check it all that stuff.
All of this is live right now, and there are, if you go to the help features, you can see some walkthroughs of some of these things. So if you want some help with using these new features, that's there. So that's cool. It's very exciting. I think this is one of our largest usability and workflow improvements we've done in years. So I think this is a big upgrade to Easel.
That's cool. Well, thanks for that. So Ben, I know we've talked about price a little bit, but definitely want to hit again that the price is not changing, right? So it's kind of the current setup that we have right now.
That's right. So everything that Brian talked about, which is some huge and very exciting improvements to Easel Pro for 2.5D that also applied to using 3D, and 3D in Easel Pro, it's included in the current price of your subscription. So if you have an Easel Pro subscription, you can use all the stuff that we just showed.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that is kind of the end of our scheduled portion. We're going to jump into the Q&A here in a second. We're also going to be doing the giveaway, but I got to run some numbers real quick to actually pick the winner. So if you guys haven't put anything in the chat, be sure and do that if you want to be entered to win. But so we've got some questions we're going to queue up here in a minute. But I know one to start out with, and then this can go to any of you guys. This is kind of related to the types of bits that you can use. Specifically, some people have like tapered ball noses or like different types of V-bits. Kind of how does that work?
Yeah, I can take that question. So currently we have native support built for standard ball nose bits. You can enter a tapered ball nose bit, you can enter a flat bottom V-bit, and you can do a carve with it. I think that the Jesus engraving that we saw earlier, that was carved without a ball nose bit, is actually carved with a flat tipped 20-degree V bit. So your mileage may vary. I recommend people to try with small engravings or small carves, test it out, make progress. Don't set yourself up for like a 25-hour carve right out of the gate. Get your feet wet. We made it really easy to learn how to do this and to make improvements. So the other thing to keep in mind is, what we're putting out there today, the goal is for us to listen and get feedback. So please reach out to us, talk to us about your experiences. We want to continue to improve 3D and Easel Pro, and we will continue to work at it. So in terms of what bits that I would recommend starting with, I have done almost all my carvings with 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch ball nose or bits, or you can use like a 1/16 diameter taper ball nose bit. Those work really well too for significant detail. If you're going something really small, like doing like coins or really tiny engravings, you can go to a smaller size. But again, it's just the smaller the diameter, the longer the carve is going to take. And that longer carve means it's going to cost more money.
That's cool. Okay, so reading through your guys' chat right now. Let's see. So this is a good question from Peter Mussett. He asked, does this work with non-pro Xcarve, or I guess the non-Xcarve Pro? And that's to anybody that wants to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3D works with any machine that any Gerbil machine that Easel can control, and it works with. I actually have a regular Xcarve in my shed, and I've gotten 3D working, and I know Ben's been using Xcarve Pro for his, so yeah, it should work on any of our machines.
Yeah, you can also download the G-code after you've generated the G-code in Easel. You can download the G-code and use that G-code on other machines if you'd like to as well.
Cool. Okay, so another question that we got. This is from Steve Mosley, is asking, will large 3D carving be able to be split up into sections with tiling?
Currently, it does. Currently, it's not. I think that's something that we've definitely been thinking about. We've been, when you're faced with like a 25-hour carve or something like that, we've been looking at how do we make that more manageable for a person to deal with, both from a large size format and also the time format. So it's definitely something that we're interested in solving.
Cool. All right, so this is David Fratella. Will there be any 3D STL models available in the Easel Pro design library?
So currently we've got a blog article, which we've rounded up 8 of our favorite places to find free and paid STL files. We'll link to that. So it can be linked. It'll be linked in Easel. It'll be linked in the chat. I'm sure, Brandon, you could probably put it in the YouTube video. The idea here is that there's tons of places online to get STL files. So we're going to leverage that community right now and allow people to bring their own files they've already purchased or otherwise into Easel. So things to keep in mind when you're bringing in or looking for STL files. A lot of STL files are made for 3D printing, so you want to make sure that it'll work really well for CNC carving. You can bring a file in that's, like imagine bringing in a full sphere. It's really just going to carve the top part of it. So anything that's undercut is just going to have a straight line that comes down. The other thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure you're using like a reputable source, that you're finding files that are the right resolution and size. And lastly, want to make sure that you understand the licensing and intellectual property rights around those STL files, so that you're not violating the creator's rights.
Cool. Okay, so this is a fun one from Caitlin Graham. Will the generation of toolpaths be quicker than what it was on the beta?
I'll let Brian talk. Oh, Brian, you're
Brian's muted.
Yeah,
we're live, guys.
Sorry,
sometimes we're muted. I'm sure that's never happened.
Yeah,
to anyone.
I have to jump in here because I'm so excited and proud of this. We identified some performance issues a couple of weeks ago, and 2 of the Easel team members, Jim and Neil, I got to call them out by name because the work that they did over the last 2 weeks to improve performance has been outstanding. We are very proud of where the performance is now, and the good thing is we're also not done working on it, and so we're going to look to keep improving that toolpath generation. But it is very, very quick compared to what it was just a couple of weeks ago. So
yeah. We actually saw one particular project that had a 173 times increase in performance. So we were able to generate the preview for a particular project 173 times faster, which is just a crazy order of magnitude improvement.
Yeah. And to just say, we are generating these toolpaths on your computer in the browser, and so it will be impacted by the performance of your computer a little bit. So newer machines will see faster toolpath generation than older machines, but our goal is that Easel Pro with 3D will be usable on any machine that can support Easel. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, right now, if you can run Easel successfully, you should be able to generate toolpaths with 3D.
Ben, you want to talk about the triangles and simplifying larger files, more complex files?
Yeah, so at its core, an STL file is just a surface of triangles. So when you look at the map of the United States, and maybe Brandon, I don't know if you can share my screen real quick, but I can zoom in on it so I can show people. Is that something you can set up? Yeah. So this is the map. If you just keep zooming in and over again, you're going to see that there's little triangles in this map. And so when you have a file, let's say this is 20 megabytes or 200 megabytes, the more triangles you have in a STL file, the more complex that surface map is, and then the harder that file is to generate toolpaths for or to load. And since we are doing things in the browser, if you have a 100 megabyte file, you have to have your internet has to be able to upload that file and download it. So the idea here is you can use that mesh simplification tool, which I can share real quick here. This tool here, and you can basically just pick a file and then select what simplification you want it to. So we've actually played around with this a lot, and we found that by simplifying it down to under 100 megabytes, you're able to get the resolution you need for a carve, but it also provides you better performance. So in general, the smaller you make your file, the better performance you'll have, and that goes with saying like you want to make sure you keep the quality high enough, but the smaller files perform better.
And that was a question we had several people asking about. Can you edit the STL? So I guess not just like the width, the height, and everything, but like actually individually edit everything in there.
Yeah, currently you can change the orientation of the model, so you can flip it around like that, different orientations. You can change the size. So technically you can. So let's say I don't have the constraint, the dimensions constrained, and I want to just change it like that. You can edit the model in that sense. But in terms of editing the model, like by editing surfaces or editing points, we currently don't support that. So you'll need if you want to edit an STL or create an STL, there are plenty of resources out there, and we actually do link to some of those on our support pages.
Yeah, and I just put a couple links in the chat. I know the chat's going fast, but I tried to pin one of them, and that's going to have links to free resources where you guys can download STLs. I know especially on the states, there's several out there where you can download pretty much any state, and then you can adjust it in there if one of those carves is what you're looking to do. Okay, let me throw it back over to the questions. This is good. This is from Eland Holland. Sorry if I mispronounce any of your names. Isn't it computationally intensive to be constantly changing the estimate? So I guess she's talking about the real-time estimate at the bottom.
Yeah, so this estimate is based on a couple of different factors. So you'll notice that estimate happens very quickly, but it also only happens when you change aspects of the carve that will impact the estimate. So we put in quite a bit of intelligence in there, and there are things that it's basically trying to estimate based on the volume of material that we're removing, given the current settings, how long do we roughly estimate that will take? And so there are like little things that kind of will affect the accuracy of that, but we're not trying to get it 100% accurate. We're just trying to give you an idea of how these things are impacting it so that you can get close and then generate the final toolpath afterwards. So the final generation is the real heavy lifting, and the quick estimation is kind of quick so you can get the updates faster.
Yeah, that's a great explanation.
This one gets a little more into the weeds as well. This is from Everhart Creations. Once a rollout and everyone jumping on to use, do you anticipate downtime or crashes with the software? And kind of to go along with that, some folks are asking, like, is all these calculations, are they happening in the cloud? Is it locally? Kind of how does the math work behind the scenes?
So the calculations for the real-time estimate are happening live on the browser. Same with toolpath generation. That's all happening locally on your browser.
Cool.
Yeah, and we've been keeping track of the number of users per minute, per hour. We've been looking at our bandwidth on our servers, and if we need to spin up more, we can. So we're definitely like on top of that in terms of performance. We'll be essentially able to stay ahead of anything that comes up.
Cool. Let's see. This is coming from, I just lost it. Okay, so this is coming from Estamir Inc. Can you combine 2D and 3D within Easel?
You can. You're able to create multiple work pieces in the same project, and you can have a 3D work piece and a 2.5D or 2D work piece. And so if you use the rectangle relief option, or if you use the boundary relief option, you're able to create essentially like lower the plane down of the top of your material, and then you can do a 3D carving, and then you can then take that material and apply text engraving like V-bit engraving or other carvings to that in a different work piece. So because you're able to have multiple work pieces in a project, you can have an STL in one work piece, and you can have V-bit engraving in another work piece, and you can do another type of carving in a third work piece or more. So really the sky's the limit with what you decide to create. And I'm sure that over the next few weeks, we're going to see plenty of people both on YouTube and in the forums talking about their process. We're really excited to see how everyone uses the different tools that are available. So please make sure to share what you're making so that we can learn more about how you're interacting with it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this is a question from Badger Printing. are you going to be able to set what you want cut by each bit? They said they struggled with the multiple bit cuts and wanting to select specific bits for each one. Kind of how does that work?
Well, for specific to 3D, you'll have two operations. You'll have a roughing operation and a finishing operation. So the roughing operation is just going to be the roughing bit, and then the finishing operation is going to be the finishing bit. So there's just two bits with two operations. Now, you can get more complicated if you want to, but for the beginning, I would just keep it with those two bits. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answered the question, or if that was maybe more aimed at 2.5D, but
cool.
Well, that was it.
Yeah. Well, sweet. Well, we're gonna start wrapping it up. But definitely want to announce the giveaway winner, and actually just threw it on the screen accidentally. So if you guys were watching, you just saw the winner. Go ahead.
Before Brandon, one real quick thing. If anybody asks a question in the comments and we didn't get to answer it, I'd really encourage people to take it to the Inventables forum. Post your question in the new 3D section within Easel Pro. If you have questions about 3D, myself and the rest of the team will go on and we'll do our best to answer all the questions. We want to make sure that if you had a question that didn't get answered because of time today, that we will answer it. And some of you might know Brian and I are pretty active on some of the Facebook groups. So if you ask questions there, we'll probably go and answer them as well.
Cool. Yeah, we definitely want to see what you guys are carving. So post it because we love to see the projects that you all are making. So
yeah, I will say for the dev team, seeing these awesome projects people have made is really, really rewarding. It's one of our favorite things to do is share results that people have gotten. So please share.
Cool. Okay, so for the winner, so we just did a random draw of 2,300 chat comments, I think is what we're up to right now. So lots of people going quick. This is Jim Gibson, I think, yeah, at the top of the screen. And Jim, if you can just shoot me a email, I'll put my email up real quick. So this is brandon@inventables.com, and we will get that over to you once I make sure I know that it's you. So, but cool, guys. Well, thank you so much for everybody for joining us. This was a blast. We can't wait to see all of the incredible things that you guys make. And yeah, we're just looking forward to what is coming next. So stay tuned. Like we said, the overview video, you guys can check that out and then head over to the forums for more details and to post your results. So we will see you in the future. All right, see you guys.
Let's put our living stereo stylus in this groove.